Hi there. This is Jordan Delgran from Wing Chun Qigong. Want to apologize if I've been a bit late with the recordings. Been doing a bit of work around the house, and I'm in a service department. And I took a bit of a break. Went up to Sydney, had a bit of fun, relaxed with the family, and I'm back in Canberra again. And I thought, you know what, I need to do. I could do a lot more videos on this series, by the way, and I may do that. So the funny thing is, I'm going to call it closing remarks because I do just want to wrap this piece up before I move on to other areas across the Wing Chun Qigong training. The reason for that is it's such a vast syllabus, and there is just an enormous amount of great material to learn and hear. And the idea is to try and get as much as that free to the public in these sessions. And then I'll keep the other components um, up on the Wing Chun site for those paid members. Just so you know, one of the sort of differences is with the stuff that's up on the site, it's week by week, and you get a methodology where you have to practice. It's not so much that you sit there and think about it and theorize, and you really just do the practice, and you'll realize from the practice what it's all about. But in saying that, I wrote to my students today, and I dissected a video of a Sifu who's passed away. But I used to be a part of that school, and one of, there's lots of his lectures that are up. But I found one, and it's about the Sunim Dao and how he describes that. And he describes it in three sections. One is learning the movements. Two is, I think it was using the mind. And then the third is using Nim Dao or Nim Lik, such as mind force. And I I find it very interesting that he discovered um, what I call the Qi door, and he also called it Qi as well, but he would usually only say that with his private students. But when sort of with generalized students and things, he'd use the term Nimlik instead of Qigong. And I think I understand why he may have done that, because Qigong can have many different interpretations, and normally when you're doing Qigong, it can be for health. And these lectures have been about that, about the health aspect from a Taoist perspective. But one of the pieces is I realized I discovered the Qi door from a lot of Qigong. Yeah, so um, moving Qigong, either in my house or mostly down the park by a tree, sitting meditation. And when I say that, you don't know what I mean when I say meditation. But predominantly the meditation that I was doing was Nigong, right? In comparison to if we look at mindfulness or Vipassana type meditations from Buddhist Theravada. It wasn't those types of techniques. It was on the Taoist side of what is called Neigong or energy arts. And I would say it was from those two, both moving and sitting, performing Neigong. I discovered the Qi door and understood what Qi is and all these different things that I hear people talk about or write about or lecture about. But from that discovery, I came back and revisited this video, and I noted that I understood everything he said. Just all was like, well, that's just this, and it's very basic. And I'm not taking away from what he's saying, not at all. But I recall when I first heard that over a decade ago, when I went to that school learning from Sifu Susanna Ho, I didn't have that clarity. I didn't. It's like, well, how does he do that? Why does that work? And So really what it was about, and even though in these videos he is trying his best to do a demonstration, give the theory, really have it sink in so you know what he's doing, so then you can do it. It didn't necessarily sink in. Parts of it did, don't get me wrong. People at the school I used to go to, you know, they'll agree there's certain things I could do, but a long way to go. And I took a different route. So I really, when I look at it, I find it amazing that he found that Chi door by simply standing and doing Sun and Dao on the top of these buildings in Hong Kong. That kind of blows my mind, by the way. You know, it's like he just took that one thing and drilled all the way down to the bottom of it and found the treasure, you know. And as I mentioned, mine's a little different. And I also kind of look at it where there's a high degree of failure rate if people were to do that. Not many people are going to have the tenacity and patience just to stand. You know, I'll give it up after the first lesson, or first week, or first 6 months, or first year. Um, but he didn't. Right? And but nonetheless, the things and the path I've taken, I noticed is more aligned with the what you could say is the original teachings from the ancients. And I mean that by I'm pointing to White Crane. Okay. So if you look at Wing Chun, you know, they tell a story about snake and crane. Well, that crane, you know, is White Crane. And that snake is most likely Hermes. And so I understand Hermes Qigong, and I understand White Crane Qigong. I understand soft and hard Qigong. You know, I went and understood all of these things, and that's usually how they would have been taught. They would have been taught these Qigong movements, and then with that, they would have been taught the martial movements, and those things are repeated many times. The kata, if you can call it that, or the form, is not so much a set of I'm going to punch here because, and then they block it, so I counter with this, and then they do this, and I counter with this. The forms are this is how you do this strike, this is how you do this kick, this is how you do this generation of force. So it's got nothing to do with a sequence of attacks, right? That's how White Crane's set up. And some of you listening to this might, if you would have thought, well, that's Wing Chun. That's how Wing Chun is. It doesn't work exactly, right? So Wing Chun forms are set in such a way to just sort of teach you like this one thing, and then the next movement can be completely different. It's got nothing to do with like a set of movements. Well, anyways, with all of that, this is you have this course set up where you have what I call the Jing door, right? And then the Qi door, and then the Shin door, because you progressively pass through these doors in your martial arts training as you go internal. You also do it if you're doing meditation correctly, as you go, as they tell you to go within. You also do it with your Qigong, right? Whether that be martial Qigong or health Qigong or whatever it may be. And so what I've found through all of this is the benefits of me doing martial arts have been so profound in my Qigong training. And I would hate to think of doing one without the other, because I think I'll be not like half as bad. I mean, on a logarithmic scale as bad. And so when you get like a 10% increase over here, it's like an exponential increase over here. 10% increase over here is an exponential increase over here. And they all sort of feed off each other. But I get better at my moving Qigong, and so I can do something different in my martial arts. And then when I'm sitting stationary in my Neigong, there's something different that occurs there, and that can impact something over here. There's this circular positive phenomena. You may or may not know of these things because you may not have been taught them. And hence why I'm giving the theory behind the Taoist arts, because within Wing Chun, it was influenced by these things. Although it's, from the Shaolin Temple, and we know that's Buddhist, from the Chan lineage of Bodhidharma, it's implanted inside of China, which is, the generations before that were of this Taoist descent. And so to really grasp these, the fourth generation, why those moves occur, and the attitude behind these techniques, you have to go back and sort of understand the people of that time. I can't be looking at it as Jordan Belgrand, 2023, and there's iPhones and computers and this type of government, and then reading that thing. You have to sometimes look at it when they give you examples of the type of government they had in play. What dynasty was it that this thing was written? And because if they're talking about the government and so forth, which they sometimes do, they talk about soldiers and they talk about statesmen and so forth. Okay, so what I tended to do is dumb all that, well, not dumb it down, is just take a modern analogy of what they were representing, and that's what I would give in the course and so forth. Now, on that brings me to these lectures, and I want to call it out. The majority of the material was taken from a book called Harnessing the Power of the Universe by Daniel P. Reed. I will, as the little snapshot that they put up for these videos, I'll put that little screenshot there so you can enlarge it and have a look. Why I think it's such a great book to read, even though it's I don't know. It kind of says here it says 1948, right? So I'm not sure if it was written in 48 and then republished in the 80s. I'm really not sure. But one of the things I noticed with reading the ancient Taoist texts, which have been, transcribed by Thomas Cleary, is that one is you're getting sort of Thomas Cleary's viewpoint of it because he has to translate it. No offense to him, brilliant translator, by the way. But you're also dealing with this, like madman's riddle, because the Taoist masters never wanted this stuff for general public consumption. So they're going to talk in terms of mercury and lead, and then you got to know what that is, And then they'll talk they'll talk about the red cinnabar. They talk about the mysterious paths. And you got to know. If you don't know, you're just sort of circulating around where you stumble across a little stone you lift up and you're like, okay, I know what that is, but I have all these other stones around and you lift them up and I don't know. And so it's difficult to progress. Right? I'm not saying don't read them, just saying that will be your general experience if you don't have a teacher who has that framework and says, well, you do know that the red cinema is this thing, it's your lower dantian or whatever it is, right? And but with this book by Daniel P. Reed, and from these lectures that I provided, it's just straightforward. It's like, here it is. The grand ultimate or absolute, the unlimited potential that existed before all materiality is what is called the Tao. from that great potential of energy, there is so much unfathomable energy that from it produced a polarity. And from that energy, we decipher it as yin and yang, although it is one thing of two differing aspects of the spectrum. We can see that the lectures then went into the different powers that you could use from the heavens, from the human body and the earth. And then we went through context of how to regulate those things. How do you regulate the body? How do you regulate the breath? How do you regulate your mind? How do you regulate your emotions? How to regulate your heart? I even pointed at mistranslations of where they would say breath, but it really meant chi, and how that, how do you breathe from your heels? Do you think that's really breathing when your lungs are up here? Right. What else? And we went through the other areas, such as the elements, and we did the elements from the Taoist perspective in Chinese medicine. How those, like a wood and metal and fire and water and earth, how they interlink with the organs of the body, and how the negative emotions that we have also interlink with those organs. So the more that you express those negative emotions into the world, the more they will deteriorate that organ within your body. Hence why it's very important to do your best to express in a sense, the antithesis of that negative emotion, and try and cultivate that positive emotion wherever you can throughout your life. Not only will this bring greater happiness, it also brings greater health. There are other texts I've read since that time that have helped in understanding that to greater clarity. And one of those is, I think it's David R. Hawkins. He has a degrees of consciousness, that start very low and go up to 1,000, which is ultimate enlightenment. It goes higher than that, but that's the Buddha head, Jesus Christ level. And what we can see is in the 200 or less, we have those negative types of emotions. And the way that they interlink with your organs, and this is the part, is that we have 3 nervous systems. In the West, we normally think about the 2. We have the general nervous system I'm using now to move my hands, like, conscious of the movement. And then we have the autonomic nervous system, consists of sympathetic and parasympathetic. Used to be believed you can't control this, but you can through things such as deep meditation, the relaxation response and visualization. It's something you'll need to look into yourself. Very important if you want to learn Neigong, or also the internal arts. Now, the third one, and I've never seen it discussed in this way, is the meridians. So you can't poke at it and strip it out of your body like you can with the nerves, but it can be measured, and has been measured, that there are different points on your body and lines where it's easier for electromagnetic energy to traverse. And it's really this one that's tied in with things like kinesiology and muscle testing and so forth, and specifically traditional Chinese medicine. And we know that because each one of these meridian lines is linked back to an organ. You didn't know that, especially the 12 major meridians. So I really hope that this closing sort of gives you enough that there's nothing there that is woo-woo, there's nothing there so far that is quackery, and there is this inherent relationship between the physical, and what we can call non-physical. And so, for example, your general environment is physical. And we spoke about that as well. Things like radiation, X-rays, Wi-Fi, microwaves. The list goes on, doesn't it? And how these things, these toxins, that you want to try your best to eliminate them because they're, in a sense, harming the body. You don't want to be paranoid about them, because if you're generating fear and all of this stuff within your mind, that's those mind thoughts are creating energy. Those energies are creating these emotions, or the emotions actually create thoughts, but they can also go vice versa. You see? And then that can trigger these energetic lines on your body, which then stimulate, say, cortisol in the bloodstream, and then also stimulate these nervous systems that are interrelated with your visceral organs. So, every move you make is interdependent on everything around you in real time. So, um, I think that kind of, it goes to show the importance of doing qigong every day, because it's not something you can hurt. In a sense, you shouldn't be able to hurt yourself doing it. There's certain techniques you can do to hurt yourself. I'm not going to be describing them publicly. But you can see trying to, in a sense, reset, so you can get that harmony to take on the day, and you can take that harmony into the day. And whenever those struggles arise, you can remember to find your inner balance. That brings me to the last piece, which is the meditative aspect. And there's a great book I'm reading now, Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender. And this is a pivotal piece. So for the school I have, when I say something like meditation, well, there's many meditative techniques, but if you're going to be doing, any technique, it should be the technique of letting go. It's probably like, the most beneficial and gives you the most bang for your buck. What I've discovered is, if you can combine that technique with Neigong techniques, you get a logarithmic outcome of how powerful it can become. And you'll find that when you get stuck in your Neigong or Qigong practice, if you look within and let go of the restricting emotion, it's the only thing. Should I say that? The only thing? Pretty much. That would allow you to overcome those blockages. And also, if you want to overcome it quickly, you want to get on with life, get on with the path. It's the one. Otherwise, and I think people are pretty well aware of this, or you become aware of it as you get older. If you can't deal with your own garbage, and the universe provides you this lesson in life, and you just don't, you think it's they're the problem, or there's this thing, it will come back around again and keep testing you until you get it. So if you don't want to face that again, the way to stop it happening is to confront that and let it go. All right, well, I think that's enough, and I think it brings this lecture series to a close, since I've provided the theories leading up to this, and I just gave you the core technique that you would use to address all of those items. And I mean that seriously, that it would address health items of your physical body. If we look at all your bodies, right, you have your your physical body or visceral organs and other things. It helps with that. You have your energetic body, and inside of that body is where your emotions because they are energies. They bubble up and disturb you. So you would greatly assist in alleviating that. We then have the mind body, and with greater emotions and everything, it creates more thoughts. And so you might have heard them talk about Jin, or the heart mind. Your heart mind's it's fragile, gets emotional very easy, it thinks too much. But if you do this technique and you release the emotion, there's no causality for those thoughts to arise. So your mind becomes open and clear. With your mind open and clear in such a state, you're able to get greater concentration, which allows you to find deeper areas and let go, which releases more energy. So not only do you release these negative energies, every time you release them, it compensates you with positive energy. So you begin to gain greater vitality, and you also begin to increase your consciousness, which takes us into the Shen body, or the mind body. And then I'm going to stop there. We don't need to talk about the greater bodies beyond that. If you are capable of doing what I just described, you don't need someone in this world telling you what's next. Awesome. Everyone have a great day, and I will hopefully become a bit more regular with the updates as I move back home, and I plan to come up with some new ideas of different things to teach you. Thanks again.